All right, welcome in. I know there's a lot going on. There's basketball, there's NBA in-season tournament going on that I was watching on the ugliest court that I've ever seen in New Orleans. I mean, my gosh, I needed to take a break from that to help my eyes adjust to reality again. But anyway, welcome in. Let's talk coaching search. Day 2, literally only day 2 of coaching search season. And again, I know there's a lot going on. There's basketball. There's all kinds of stuff. There's, I think, college football tonight as well. But anyway, so I appreciate you guys hanging out despite the busy nature of the sports day, the sports evening, if you will. But I have learned that it is a very a lucrative conversation. That's the thing here is in this business, right? Which this isn't my business. The radio show's my business. This is just something that I do on the side. This is just kind of for fun, mostly, more than anything else. But in from the radio show perspective, in the content business, it's very clear that you need two things. You need the teams to be really good, because either A, you want the teams to be really, really good because fans love winners, right? Talking about wins makes people feel good. People that feel good want to hear more about how good their team is. Or you want them to be so bad that they're firing their coach. And no in between. The purgatory in between is that's where the problems lie. Okay, so we've got the best of both worlds. Ole Miss is having a really good season. Mississippi State's looking for a coach. This is a beautiful time of year to be in content. But anyway, we are going to talk about that tonight. My name is Michael Borky. Please like the video if you have not already. Subscribe to the channel also if you haven't already. And if you're watching this after the fact, please still comment. That also helps me a ton. We're just going to let it fly. I have nothing planned because I just want to talk to you guys about whatever you want to talk about when it comes to coaching searches. Obviously, here in this state, everybody's focused on what Mississippi State is going to do. And this lead comment is going to start us off. I hate to tell you, though, my friend, it may be my fault that you say this, but you say Jamie Chadwell not turning his Twitter location off is the most comical thing you've seen in a while. That is fake. That is, unfortunately, that is fake. And I say unfortunately for the right reason. So I got on it today. In case you guys don't know what we're talking about here, there was a screenshot that I first saw on College Football No Context, which is a great Twitter account. They literally just tweet videos and pictures that are from college football things without any context in them. And it's very funny. It's just, it captures the essence of college football, right? Well, they shared a screenshot today of a Jamie Chadwell tweet that was promoting his coach's show. But the thing is, the location on the bottom had Starkville, Mississippi. And so what I first thought was, that's not real, right? That doesn't make sense. That's not real. However, I went to Jamie Chadwell's profile and I pulled up the tweet, and it had his location as something else. The standard Earth for anytime, like I tweet something, it says my location is Earth because I don't share my location with the website. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to find out if you can like bring that back. Can you like have your location show up and then remove that? Can you edit that out? And sure enough, I figured out that you could. So my dumb brain was like, oh my gosh, this is so funny. And I knew that there was the possibility that it wasn't true because I even put that on Twitter. I was like, I'm going to be so disappointed if it wasn't true. Wishful thinking just caught me in that moment because you guys know how coaching searches go. You know how many people are working so hard to get just an inch of information when it comes to coaching searches. People are digging and digging and digging, and they just keep digging because they need to find just anything to tell their subscribers and their followers and their listeners what could possibly be going on. And knowing that people are working that hard on it, and knowing that people are so hungry for information, for the coach to accidentally tweet with his location on and ruin everything would have just been the funniest story. And funny, like, and not in a bad way either, right? Because if you guys know me, you know that I think that Jamie Chadwell would be a good hire for Mississippi State. My concern would be he's never worked in the Power Five before. Not never coached them, never worked in the Power Five before. So building a staff, I would wonder about that. Can he build a quality staff of recruiters that can win at this level? But if you look at his record, he is a winner everywhere. He wins everywhere, and he's done it at multiple different places at multiple levels, right? He was part of the coaching staff and then became the coach that helped transition Coastal Carolina from the FCS to the FBS, which is a very hard transition for some. And that was not a place that was really winning at a high level anyway at the FCS level. It wasn't like Appalachian State, who's just dominant, every year just dominant, or James Madison, who's just dominant and they're moving up and they're still set up for success. Coastal Carolina wasn't really in that, and he was the coach that helped them transition into that and was boom immediately successful. He is a widely successful coach at multiple different places, and his offense is really fun and interesting. And if you watch interviews of his and stuff, he would be very easy to buy into. He could easily sell what fans could buy. So I think he would be a good hire, which is what makes it harmlessly funny, is that if that were to have been how that news got broken, then it would have been hilarious because all these people anyway, and it would have been a good hire at the end of the day. So I was having a lot of fun with that today, and it's not true. That was totally not true. It would have been hilarious. It's not though. It's not real, unfortunately, because that would have just been perfect chef's kiss college football. But alas, it was not. It was not that. Such a shame. Such a shame. There's no way Mississippi State is that far down the road in the search either. There's no way on literally day 2 that they are that far down the road. So some things you text the show, so forgive if we've touched on it when you were in and out of the car, but State can't hire a coordinator. Cannot. If they do, I believe it's an indictment on the program. I agree with you, Chase. I do. I think that stability is going to be very important for Mississippi State over the next few years. I think that's something that they need to value, is somebody that will come in and bring stability and bring calm. And I think that you need to do that with somebody that has done that before. I mean, look, Dan Lanning was a coordinator. Look at him now, right? I mean, Kirby Smart was a coordinator, and look at him now. I understand that those hires can work out, but having just gone through, and I know he only coached 10 games, but having just gone through hiring an inexperienced coordinator, the program, right, wrong, or indifferent. See, I've had some State fans get upset with me on Twitter, of all things. Our radio audience seems to really understand this, but there is a perception of Mississippi State. Whether or not you believe that the perception is reality, frankly, it doesn't matter. There is a perception of instability at Mississippi State right now. You can argue with me until you're blue in the face why that's not true, but I'm telling you that there is a perception out there of that is a real thing. That is something that they're going to have to overcome in the search. I have a feeling that Mississippi State is going to have to commit more financially than you would expect if you look at the candidate list that, we did Hey Dad's Hot Board today. And that candidate list is not one that you think that you would have to spend a whole lot of money on, but I do think Mississippi State is going to have to commit money and years to ensure that they get somebody that is right for that job, more so than you would expect, possibly. Again, it's all possible conjecture, but they need somebody that will bring stability to the program because, again, whether or not the circumstances around why Joe Moorhead got fired, he beat Ole Miss and went to 2 bowl games and still got fired after 2 years. I know the circumstances. You don't have to tell me. I know. But that did happen. You hire Mike Leach. He does tragically pass away. And then you go one and done with Zach Arnett. That, on the surface, speaks to instability. I argued for, and not that, you guys really needed my validation, for Mississippi State moving on from Zach Arnett. I think they had no choice, had to do it. However, they would be well served as a program to find somebody that has done it before, that not safe isn't the right word, but somebody that would have a higher hit rate, if that makes sense. Somebody that's run a program before. That's why Chadwell, I think, is enticing. That's why Willie Fritz, I think, is enticing. even though their age is different, because you know those two guys have run a program for a while, and you know that they would, I think, have a higher floor than a Jeff Lebby, for example. I think those two guys would have a much higher floor than a Jeff Lebby. There's a chance that a Lebby would come in and be great, would be great at Mississippi State. There's also a chance that Lebby would come in and be a disaster, and I don't think that Jamie Chadwell would be a disaster. I don't think that Willie Fritz. I'm using those two names. I don't know if those are candidates number 1 and 2 or not. I don't know. I'm just using those names. There's a chance that those guys are a disaster. Sure. I think there's far less of a chance that those guys are a quote unquote disaster, if that makes sense. So, how am I going live when we have a riveting game of basketball between Ole Miss and Detroit Mercy? Yeah, that's an interesting score. I just pulled it up there as I was talking to see if they had pulled away as the second half has started, and they have not. And that is a Detroit Mercy team that has lost their first 2 games by 30, over 30. First off, hope I'm doing well, Mike. I appreciate that, Matthew. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I was in a weird mood all weekend, man. But I'm good now. I'm happy now. So, coaching search, man. It brings the best out of me, I guess. You don't know what Arkansas thinks they're doing. You think Pittman would be fired on his way to getting fired right now. Yeah. So that's a weird deal. Richard, for what it's worth, had revealed in air quotes on our show today that he had talked to some people that they think up in Arkansas that they're not organized enough in the NIL space to be attractive to the candidates that they would want to hire. And so they feel like they need to be more organized first. Also, possibly put feelers out on Gus Malzahn and didn't like the response. And so maybe they're still mulling the decision over. I don't know how you can go another year like this, though. I mean, that's with Texas and Oklahoma joining the league with this new era. It's just so much easier to get buried faster. It's just so much easier to get buried faster. And dragging your feet on something like this and going through another year of irrelevancy is something that I am shocked that they are considering. Now that I said that, he's going to get fired tomorrow, but maybe you're missing something. But why has almost no one thrown Bobby Petrino's name around? Does he still have it? I know he used to be a coach, a quality coach, but is he anymore? I mean, there's a reason that he was Jimbo's, last ditch effort OC after being the coach at Missouri State, and it wasn't just because of a bad motorcycle ride. There's questions about whether or not he still can win at a high level. Obviously, character concerns, things of that nature. Chadwell would be a really good hire for State. He is a winner and runs an exciting offense. That offense is really fun. We had a listener today ask, if we thought that the offense would translate to the SEC. Like the person was concerned that it wouldn't work against SEC athletes. And my response is, it's not the Army triple option. Like, yes, it is an option offense. There's a lot of pre-snap and misdirection and stuff like that, but it's more modern. I don't necessarily think that concern is valid, if we're being totally honest. I could be wrong. I usually am, but I don't think that his offense not translating to the SEC would be a concern of mine. I think it would be staff building and recruiting with the staff. I mean, he brought like all of his coastal guys to Liberty with him. He has not worked in the Power 5 yet. That would be my concern. So you don't want them, but you don't care if you have to go with Barry Odom or Bobby Petrino. You have to get a head coach, be it young Kinney or old Insignetti or whatever. It has to be a head man. I agree. A&M is about to get Bjorked in the coaching search. I actually believe Dan Lanning. And look, there's going to be egg on my face probably when he ends up taking the job there at Texas A&M. But people point to like Nick Saban's deal, leaving the Dolphins for Alabama, and Tommy Tuberville's Pine Box comment, right? That's what everybody's pointing to is, well, I heard Nick Saban say, Guys, we're approaching 20 years since Nick Saban said that he wouldn't be the coach at Alabama. I was 6 years old when Tommy Tuberville made the Pine Box comment. There have been a lot more coaches in Dan Lanning's position answer questions differently than Dan Lanning did. I guess it was yesterday about the A&M job. Look, he could be lying. He certainly could be lying. But what he said was a minute and 45 seconds straight up denial. And it wasn't just a denial that I'm only focused on this team. It was, he said, there's a 0% chance I'm coaching somewhere else, because he wasn't specifically asked about Texas A&M. He even made fun of other coaches being afraid to answer that question because they don't want egg on their face. I mean, that was a straight up denial. That wasn't coach speak. That wasn't, again, he could be lying, I suppose, but that was a denial. That was a real answer to that question. When you look at other coaches that have had his job before, but you look at other coaches and the way they approach this, they spin it, right? Dabo's answer today was so different than that of Dan Lanning's. It was, it must be November. And let's see if I have it. Dabo, I'm just focused on this job, always have been, just trying to beat North Carolina. It must be November. That's all I can say. That's very different. That is not a denial. That is what most coaches do. Lanning straight up said no, like 0%. I don't know. I tend to believe him. This idea that A&M fired Jimbo knowing who the next guy is going to be, I think is complete bogus. It almost never works that way. I believe Lanning. I'm wrong. I think that A&M is going to miss there. If you're making the hire, you make Leipold. Tell me no 22 times. Me too. You're going Chadwell second to see if it's doable. Then if it's a full court press on Mullen. Yeah, I am of the opinion, Chase, that Leipold is ultimately going to tell Mississippi State no. I think that he is the kind of candidate, and you guys know me, and you know how I feel about Mississippi and the schools here. You know that. You know I think very highly of the state that I live and the schools in which the state exists. But I'm not stupid. I know that there are bigger jobs, a good many bigger jobs, more lucrative jobs than Mississippi State, which is the one currently open here. There are. And so if I'm Leipold, Kansas is already committing to him financially. He's winning there. He could be there forever, which is not, I don't think that that's the goal. They're changing facilities. They're pretty good. And then they've got a lot good going for them right now. And so the battle is not Mississippi State versus Kansas, because that's an obvious winner. The battle is Mississippi State versus who Leipold thinks could come open in the very near future. That's who you're fighting against. So if you're him sitting in your position, Mississippi State's a better job than Kansas. No doubt. Absolutely no doubt. I mean, it would be silly to debate otherwise. But if I'm him and I've got a very long, very lucrative contract already, they're going to tear down and rebuild the entire stadium. And Michigan might come open soon. I mean, Mac Brown's not going to be around at North Carolina forever. Those kind of things. That's what you are. That's what you're fighting against. That's what you're up against if you're Mississippi State with a guy like Leipold. Is, he doesn't have to make the jump. He's making a ton of money and he's winning, and he's at a place that's committed. And State won't be able to offer him triple his salary like they can some of these other Group of 5 coaches. But I agree with you. I would try. I would try and try again, and I would make him tell me no 100 times before I offered the job to somebody else, because I think the dude is a freaking rock star. Any idea what happened with Zachary Franklin? No, I don't know exactly what happened. I do know that there is a very clear pattern of a change also in that program, where if you start to cause problems, they just don't keep you around anymore. That they're not willing to put up with the crap. So I don't know exactly what it is. It's more of a blanket statement, but they have had a quick trigger on on these guys. I mean, Chris Marshall could have really helped that team this year, and they cut ties with him anyway because he was causing problems. I mean, they've done that. This is the fourth guy now, as far as I know, that they've that could have helped the team that they've chosen. Nah, see ya. You're a problem. Interesting, because I don't think last year they would have done it that way. The circumstances are different with State, but 2 and Q with Moorhead, Leach, and then 1 and done with Arnett could affect things. Yes, it could, and I've said that, and I've gotten the "you're just a dumb Ole Miss homer" thing. Well, I'm just the dumb Ole Miss homer that spent the entire offseason telling people that it might not go well. And look who's dumb now. I'm being a little cocky there. Sorry, I don't like that I just said that, but oh well, got to live with it. We're live. Yes, it will create a situation where they will have to answer more questions than usual. Now, they can answer them, of course. I mean, you can explain those things, but it does add an extra layer to the search. It does. It absolutely does. They might have to commit more financially than they would hope to, maybe, depending on who the candidate is. But you don't know about me, but it seems like Kiffin's leaving this time around. Where's he going? Uh, did something happen in the last 45 minutes or so that I've missed? Because I frankly, as of this moment, I've got an entirely opposite feeling, like the complete opposite feeling that you do. I really haven't seen anything that leads to leads me to believe that there's any traction at the moment for that. Things could change, but this is not like Auburn last year. Not yet. If you take the pipe dream wishes off the board for State and blind stacked resumes of actual viable candidates, Dan Mullen's resume is in a stack by itself compared to every other person on your list. My only concern would be recruiting in this era, because it's totally different now. It's not just recruiting high school kids, which is something that he didn't particularly commit to ask Kirby Smart, apparently. But it's not just recruiting high school kids. You have to still recruit high school kids. You also have to recruit college kids. You also have to recruit your own roster. And now money's involved, and you have to be a part of raising that money. And it's a lot new since Dan Mullen was last at Mississippi State. A lot has changed since he left, a whole lot. And I would be concerned if he would have that same success, knowing that the era is different. But your point is a good one, that the resume is quite good, and he would very much understand the culture there. I mean, obviously, no shit, Michael. Of course he would. But he would understand what that job is. And you get that Mullen and Dr. Keenum is a major issue, which is significant given who the friction is with. But Mullen being a non-starter is horrific in business sense. What are the worst feasible hires I could see State and A&M actually making? We see lots of great and not so great names floating around. What happens if these searches go wrong? That is an interesting question. It's a very interesting question. Who would be bad at Texas A&M? Honestly, some people might think I'm crazy. I think Dabo wouldn't end well at Texas A&M. I don't. I would be very concerned if I was an A&M fan that Dabo is somebody that's name is floating out there, because you just fired Dabo. I mean, a national championship winning head coach with a great resume who, as of late, things look a little weird. And since they lost a generational quarterback, things haven't been the same. It's like you're just Jimbo and Dabo are just kind of the same. And I mean, you would have to get him to get out of this philosophy of I'm not going to use the portal, and you're going to have to get him out of not emphasizing NIL. Now, he fits that place like a glove in terms of the act, like the emotional fit, the culture fit. But I would be really concerned if I were A&M. It's a more difficult league. He's not winning at Clemson right now. Things have not been the same since Trevor Lawrence left. And DJ stunk under him, goes to Oregon State, and he's lighting the world on fire. Klubnik was a can't miss. Everybody wanted 5-star, and now he stinks. And they're 6-4. and with an easy schedule in a bad league, and that would concern me. The worst hire that State could make that would be actually feasible. The worst hire that they could make that would be feasible. Ooh, um, that's a good question. The worst hire that they can make that's actually realistic. Who would that be? Bobby Petrino? No, well, because his name's on a hot list, Shane Beamer would be the worst hire they could possibly make. Now they're not going to, and that's not going to happen at all. But yeah, that would be the worst hire that they could possibly make is Shane Beamer. Actually, yeah, that's the one. Even though it's not going to happen again, but that would be the worst hire they could make because it would be expensive, and also he would lose a lot because he's doing it at South Carolina right now. Like literally right now, he's losing a lot and underachieving at South Carolina at the moment. I would guarantee that Shane Beamer would not be successful at Mississippi State. I would guarantee it. He's not successful right now. That would be the worst. UCLA head coach Gary Patterson. How does that sound? That job kind of strikes me as something that like Jonathan Taylor would take. I mean, I know he's at his alma mater at Oregon State, but that kind of feels like that would be a fit there. You say UCLA firing Chip Kelly is so weird. I mean, they're making this move to the Big Ten. I don't understand that job, man, because they don't invest in football at all, really, and like the fan base just doesn't. They don't really show for it. They're not competitive really, and the school's kind of in financial trouble, or at least has been financially capped rather significantly. And now you're making this move to the Big Ten as like a financial lifeline, and now you're firing Chip Kelly. Um, you could fall even deeper into irrelevancy moving to that league, moving with who you're moving with into that league. We'll see. How would I feel about John Summerall before his time at Troy? He was solid position coach and recruiter at Kentucky. He would be an A hire. Absolutely. That would be an A hire for Mississippi State. No doubt about it. That would be an A hire. My quote unquote concern would be two things: him waiting on Kentucky or taking your job and then bolting for Kentucky whenever that job comes open. Too many people talk about that being where he wants to go, that being where he wants to end up, his dream job or whatever, makes me believe it. I know sometimes narratives form and they just kind of spiral out of control when there's no truth to their genesis, but still, it being his alma mater and having coached there before, that does make a lot of sense. But yes, if Mississippi State could get John Summerall to stop waiting on Kentucky, if that's actually what he's doing, to take your job, that would be an A hire. The only downside is that he hasn't been a Power 5 coach before, but give me a break. He's highly accomplished, well thought of in the industry. The fan base would buy. I know he's a defensive guy, but hear him talk, you buy right in to John Summerall. He's winning. He's got SEC experience. That would be an A hire. No doubt about it. That would be an A hire. I think he would be. So I would have him ahead of Chadwell. So if I were doing the search for what it's worth, somebody like Leipold would be one. I would try Kleiman at Kansas State because why not? Make a phone call. If he says no, he says no. Who cares? You don't have to tell anybody about it. Taylor at Oregon State would be another like kind of, S tier kind of guy. But I think John Summerall would be my first non-pie in the sky guy that I would really heavily pursue. I think he'd be my first if I were in Zach Selman's shoes. There are a lot of people in the State fan base, some prominent names you won't name, who have a hyperinflated sense of what the State job is at the moment. You hate to say it, but it is what it is. Another one, something you ask yourself in these coaching searches, and you're sure we'll see it with A&M, is flash over coaching quality. Oh, for sure. I think so often these things get overlooked so much. Like, why is Leipold not somebody that is like a very popular name with Texas A&M? Why not? Maybe he ends up getting there, but why not? Why is that not a popular name? Why is anybody at all talking about Dabo. Why? He's not winning right now. Leipold's winning at freaking Kansas right now, man. Kansas would go into College Station and beat Texas A&M. Kansas would do it right now. Oh, he's won everywhere he's gone. And why is that somebody like that not candidate one? I don't understand it. That's why I mentioned, again, I know it would be a very tough poll. It would be a very, very tough poll. But that's why I mentioned Taylor with Mississippi State, because the lack of having a conference thing, see what you got. I don't care that he doesn't have ties to the South at all. He wins. That's how I'll react if they do hire Jamie Chadwell. If he's the guy that they end up getting, I'll sit here and say he's a winner. He's won everywhere. Do that. Find that first. I mean, it's working at Kansas State. They hired a winner. It's working at Kansas. They just hired a person that just wins. That's what they do. And anyway, you listen to the podcast from Australia. Michael, what on earth are you doing in Australia? I appreciate that, man. There's a guy on YouTube. His YouTube name is Field Days. Field Days. I think his real name is Matt Field. But he's an Australian guy, and he and his girlfriend, they have like a property like out in the bush, but he does like survival missions where he'll do 24 hours with just like a knife and a backpack in the Australian bush, and it is awesome. So he like broke his ankle or something, so he's just kind of been rehashing old material from when he lived in Thailand. Yeah, I mean, the most interesting as hell. But scroll through his YouTube channel and watch him. I love that guy. He makes me want to live in Australia. But man, what are you doing there? I appreciate you, and thank you. What time is it there? Let's see. What is Perth? Yeah, it's 10 o'clock in the morning in Perth right now. That's crazy. Gus Malzahn. Apparently, Gus told Arkansas no. So if he told Arkansas no, he might also be telling Mississippi State no. No one would be excited at A&M if they hire Jeff Traylor, which they won't. What about Dabo to A&M? Can we see a Lincoln Riley uproot situation? Isn't that so emblematic of what we just mentioned? Though, again, I'm a little behind. Something that you just mentioned. No one there would be excited about Jeff Traylor. Not one person. That's how stupid all of this is. I mean, he may not work. There's always risk and reward with every single coach that gets hired. Even Urban Meyer might flame out at Texas A&M. Hires don't work sometimes. Chip Kelly didn't work at UCLA. He had a 500 record is what he has, both in overall and conference play. Literally 500 in both of them. So it may not work. But Jeff Traylor has the makings of somebody that would take Texas A&M to a place of winning. He's winning at UTSA. He's got a bunch of ties there. He fits well. Like listen to that guy. I mean, he could sell you on anything, and he's got a good system. And but no, he's not flashy enough because Traylor is not Sweeney, and it's their loss. Might sound controversial, but this next hire could be the most important one in state history. Arkansas, too, getting buried, like I said, could potentially happen to state if they botch this hire. Absolutely. With this era and how quickly you can get buried, and now in the 12-team playoff era where getting to that is attainable with the special season and bowl games will matter less. The 12-team playoff makes the seasons matter more and makes programs like Ole Miss and Mississippi State have a real, attainable goal that they can actually reach when it comes to the playoff and the postseason, but the bowl games won't matter. Going 7-5 in the Liberty Bowl is going to matter even less than it currently does. And you're going to be in a league with Texas and Oklahoma. Yeah, they've got to get this right, or else irrelevancy can really be chronic, and that's not good. A&M could try to get Whittingham away from Utah. Don't think it would happen, but Whittingham at A&M would be scary. I would hate Kyle Whittingham at Texas A&M. I would hate it because he'd win. He would win a lot. Yeah, and that's another. I mean, maybe he's just going to retire there. Maybe he's happy as hell there. He's been there forever. I'm sure that he's gotten opportunities to leave and has chosen not to. He's got a hell of a gig. Um, I don't think he'll win a championship there though. Maybe he wants to scratch that itch with better players at A&M. Yeah. If you're landing, why are you leaving Oregon for a little more money and a pressure cooker job? He's got it rolling at Oregon. I wouldn't leave if I were him. I mean, maybe he hates the Pacific Northwest or whatever, but I wouldn't leave. No, man. I mean, they're going to make the playoff this year. He's going to have a quarterback go uh, to the Heisman ceremony. He's recruiting like mad. He's got the brand power and Nike money. And no, man, if I've got the Oregon job, I'm leaving the Oregon job for Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State. I mean, the list of jobs that I would leave Oregon for is tiny because what can A&M do that Oregon can't do? Oregon's in the Big Ten starting next year. So they're in one of the two conferences, right? Can they get five-star players? Yes, they can. Do they have brand power? Absolutely, they do. Do they have money? Absolutely, they do. Do they have facilities? They do. Can they make the playoff? They can make the 14 playoff. They've made the 14 playoff. Texas A&M hadn't. They've already been here in this era, and in the expanded playoff, they can be a mainstay annually, even though they would be in the Big Ten moving forward. So what does A&M offer that Oregon can't at least argue that they have something similar to? Nothing. So I know I wouldn't if I were him consider it. I would leverage it for more money from Oregon, frankly, is what I would do if I were him. I would get a significant raise out of it. But no, I wouldn't leave Oregon for Texas A&M. I think that would be stupid. I would leave Oregon for, again, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. I would leave for those jobs. That's a really small list of jobs I'd leave Oregon for. Dabo and Jimbo have both struggled with developing 4- and 5-star quarterbacks post Jameis, Watson, Lawrence. See DJ in Oregon State. You've beat Dabo's Jimbo drum for years now, and it is coming to fruition. And what is going to be hilarious is if they hire him, they would literally just have hired just Dabo. I mean, they hired the exact same guy. How about A&M presenting the check that paid Jimbo's buyout at halftime of the state game? Yeah, how about that, right? I think, and I mean, you guys may disagree with me. I truly think, and I said this before to you, but I think that Jimbo Fisher getting $77 million, which is what, I saw the math. It was like $24,000 a day for the next 8 years. I think that is embarrassing. I think everybody involved in that should be embarrassed. I think that it's a stain on the sport. I think that it's going to be used against college sports when these things go to court. And I think it's going to really harm the argument that you can't pay players. And it's embarrassing. I would be, if I were an A&M fan, I'd be embarrassed today that my institution is paying somebody $77 million to not coach for me anymore. I think that's an embarrassment. Likelihood Kiffin stays this year. Nowhere for him to go. Not at the moment. Again, things change. They can change. They can stay the same. As of right now, I would bet on him being at Ole Miss next year. And I have no reason to bet against that. Can things change? Of course. But as of now, that's not a thing yet. We'll see over the next couple of weeks if things change. But as of right now, this does not feel like Auburn last year. It'd be so A&M to hire Dabo to replace Jimbo for an ungodly contract. Yeah. A&M is an elite job at a decent program. I'd love to have that job with the resources and money, but at the same time, you make the playoff and you're a legend there. It's true. That is true. History is really not on their side. Since 2000, Ole Miss will have 4 10-win seasons to A&M's 1 in comparison. It is very hard to fathom that, isn't it? But money doesn't buy everything, man. I mean, they've got a ton of it, which is what makes it such an attractive job, is because they have all that money. And in this era, especially, money leads or should lead to wins. But that's where people like them are getting lost in this. It's number one, Yes, Texas A&M has a lot of money, probably the most. They have a big stadium, all that. But they're competing in a league with a bunch of programs that have a lot of money and a big stadium and stuff like that. And if that's the only thing that you're offering, if that's the only thing that you bring to the table, well, sorry, Alabama brings more, Georgia brings more, LSU brings more than that. They think that being rich means that they can buy wins, and that's not happening yet. There might be a cultural issue there. I mean, it's the same thing with Texas, right? There's this arrogance of, well, we have all this, and so we're better than you. But the results don't bear that out. There's something amiss with programs like that because you should never ever lose with what they have, but that's all they do. Well, why is that? Maybe there needs to be some introspection there and not blaming all the coaches that you hire and fire. Chadwell seems to be the front runner. It feels really early to be talking about front runners, but I think it would be good. Ole Miss fell to 13 in the college football playoff, barring some serious upsets. Looks like the New Year's Six might be off the table. They're behind Penn State, too. Being behind Penn State is a freaking joke. Did those come out finally? Let's see. Being behind Penn State is a joke. That is an absolute joke. That is a joke, man. Okay, so Georgia's number 1 now. They did put Missouri ahead of Ole Miss. Okay. Penn State being ahead of Ole Miss is an absolute joke. That who else do they play this year? Oh, Rutgers and Michigan State. So they'll win out. That is a joke, Penn State being there. I get Missouri. Penn State being there is a joke, man. Florida and Arkansas for Missouri. Yeah, if you're an Ole Miss fan, you want Missouri to lose. Louisville could lose this weekend. That's also very much on the table. So, how does Ross Bjork dodge the blame for the situation at A&M? Uh, because the power brokers are telling him to jump, and he's saying how high. How does Lane Kiffin beat Texas A&M with less talent? He's a better coach than Jimbo. Kiffin fits at Ole Miss better than anywhere else, if you really think about it. I will say this: Ole Miss gives Lane Kiffin more liberties than basically anybody else would in college football. He has got a lot of freedom, a lot of freedom uh, at Ole Miss in ways that I don't think he would at most other programs. They really just he's got a lot of freedom at Ole Miss. Let's put it that way. Dabo would just change it from Texas 8-4 to Texas 9-3. I love that. I love that. You think Schumann is a dark horse for the state job? If he could pull Cochran from under Smart, that would be awesome. That's an interesting one. People really think really highly of him. I mean, really highly of him. How long is Prime at Colorado? I don't know. That's a good question. He needs to prove to people that he can win first. I mean, him getting asked about the A&M job, I thought was kind of funny today because he needs to prove that he can win at this level before somebody will take that jump. You don't need recruiting help at Texas A&M. You know, you needed recruiting help at Colorado. You don't need it at A&M. That's not the selling point. They just had a great recruiter. They need somebody that can win football games. And right now, we don't know if Deion Sanders can do that at this level. I think he can, but anyway. Shane Beamer's probably going to get fired next year because they are going to struggle a lot without Rattler. He's got a big contract, though. He's recruiting well also. I'm curious to see who they get out of the portal at quarterback because that's where they're going. Missouri will lose to Florida and Washington will lose to Oregon State. You heard it here first. I think Washington absolutely can lose. If you're Selman in your talks with Leipold, you're hammering Mark Stoops as part of your pitch for sticking around too long. Matt Campbell would be a one that I would use. The Shane Beamer experience is going off the rails at South Carolina. Them in Florida, you'd expect to open next. There's a very real chance that South Carolina finishes 4-8 this year. Too many hands in the cookie jar at A&M. Don't think anybody's winning there. Mark Stoops isn't the name it was 2 years ago. Granted, Kansas to State isn't a massive leap, but it is a leap. Kentucky is a place that has never won. Stoops built it up, and now it has stalled, it seems. You think the Duke coach, SMU, UTSA, or someone like that would be a huge get for State? The issue with SMU, and it is an issue because Mississippi State's a better job than SMU. However, SMU has so much freaking money that if it came down to a dollars race, State would lose. I think. I could be wrong. I know they've got SEC money, but SMU's making the jump to the ACC. They raised $100 million in a day. They've got alumni paying for the offset for the TV deal to get them into the ACC. They've got so much money that it might not be as easy to lure the SMU coach as you think it would. Dan Lanning 100% wins at Texas A&M, zero doubt in your mind, zero doubt in my mind either. He would win, and he would win big and win freaking huge. Yeah, I mean, win championships there. I love that guy. He's a little weird. Have you seen that tattoo? You can find it on Google. He's got a bizarre tattoo. You've got to see it. But no, I like him. I like his messaging. I think he's going to grow as a game day coach too. I'm a huge fan of his. I don't want him anywhere near the SEC. You don't think State will hire either Chadwell or Lashley? I think Lashley's going to be a tough pull because of the aforementioned money thing, and they're joining the Power Five, Power Four moving forward. Imagine Texas A&M gets their next premier coach, gets Arch Manning to transfer, and he starts his revenge trend that would make that rivalry fun. If yours does come back, which I don't buy that yet, by the way. Maybe he does, but I don't buy it yet. Then, you know, would he explore his options? I don't think so, but if you're A&M, Urban Meyer's 1A, 1B, C, D, and E, however high of a number I can put on a check, I'm writing it until it's a definitive no multiple times over. He would win. Dan Lanning is Nick Saban's replacement. As someone who lives 40 minutes from Tuscaloosa, I hate that. I hate that too. But if I were him, I'd be waiting for that job. Judging by tonight's CFP, Ole Miss will lose out on an NY6 to Missouri despite having the better resume. Missouri is more of a feel-good story, and recency bias is in full effect. So obviously, you hope Missouri loses. You root for Louisville to lose to Miami. You root for that kind of stuff. Is Ole Miss about to lose to Detroit Mercy? Do I need to pull that up? Jeez, that's not good. That's really not good. That will be so they're down 1 with 1:20 left if you're not watching, and they don't have the ball either. Need to go ahead and find that. Jeez. That would be something. Wow. Anyway, yeah, and like you want Georgia to beat the shit out of Tennessee this weekend. Also, things like that make their resume worse. Arch to Ole Miss? No, I do not believe that will happen. As long as Lane Kiffin's the coach at Ole Miss. Stetson Bennett was a walk-on at Georgia. That's all you need to know to point to you just can't buy yourself titles. Absolutely. I mean, it's culture, it's everything else, They need to find a way to make college teams more even and fair by limiting NIL and limiting five-star players to schools. But that's the problem. You can't tell a high school kid where they have to go to college. You can't do that. And frankly, NIL has leveled the recruiting playing field to some degree. It absolutely has. So looks like Ole Miss versus Iowa in the Citrus Bowl. What's my over/under there? A little bit higher. I think that Ole Miss would score a little bit if they were given the opportunity. State has money, there's no doubt in your mind, but unlike their in-state counterparts, it remains to be seen if they'll come off of it. People tend to forget the money in soybeans and cows. You always laugh at the cow college comments, given the dairy industry, not beef or livestock, is a $30 billion a year industry. It's just not the burn people think it is. Jeff Traylor is the only logical choice for A&M. It would make a ton of sense. Here's Ole Miss shooting a free throw right now to tie it up. Missed the first of 2 free throws, and they tie it. Wow, minute 9 left. I probably shouldn't be doing play-by-play. I think that's against like a bunch of laws. But do I think Ole Miss will look for a new OC or at least an on-the-field play caller? I do not. I do not think that they will do that. At 5 wins, can State make a bowl? I guess possibly if there's not enough, depending on what their APR is. They certainly could. There's a steal and a turnover for Detroit Mercy. It's a 3-on-1, and they blew the alley-oop because 2 guys went for it. Oh, my gosh. Just take the basket in that spot. That was crazy. I shouldn't be doing this, I don't think. A foul is called with 30. Wow. Ole Miss blew. It was a 3-on-1, and 2 guys went up for the alley-oop, and they, like, blocked each other's shot. That was crazy. Anyway, we'll talk nothing about ULM, but you'd like to see Walker Howard play. I suspect that you'll get that opportunity this weekend. You should get that opportunity this weekend. So, anyway. All right, guys, we've gone pretty long. So I got to run. Please like the video and all that. We'll be back Thursday night, 7:45. We'll probably do more of this because why the hell not? I'll see you guys then. You have a great rest of your night. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you on Thursday.